Let us continue talking about sampling techniques, this time about non-probability sampling techniques. The first and the most encompassing of them all is convenience sampling, which is simply using the results that are readily available at the comfort of our own homes. So we just ask based on the comfort of our own homes, or we just take what is available. We give out a survey, and those who just answer, those are the ones that we will use in our data analysis. Do take note though that this is not a bad way of sampling, because even though sometimes we do plan to have a random probability sampling to make our findings more believable, due to uncontrollable circumstances, we would most of the time lead to convenience sampling. Another non-probability sampling is quota sampling. So we identify the stratums and their proportions, and then convenience or judgment sampling is used to select the required number of subjects for each stratum. For example, the most famous example of quota sampling would be the people who stand in front of malls. Mall surveys. Usually, they would look for the first 200 customers, first 300 customers, not because they cannot do probability sampling, it's because you don't even know the entire list or the entire population of those entering your mall. It's very difficult to nearly impossible to list down to have a list and to randomly select from that list the number of people going to the mall. So therefore, we shall use quota sampling and then convenience sampling to get the numbers that we would need. Another non-probability sampling is purposive sampling. So this selects members or elements based on the particular purpose of the experiment or study. And this is useful for situations where you need to reach a target sample quickly and where sampling for proportionality is not the primary concern. If your concern will be customers of a specific brand, then more or less you will target those customers regardless whether you have achieved proportionality or not. Those three are the most basic of our non-probability sampling. But remember, non-probability sampling does not mean it is bad. There are really instances wherein we have to use non-probability sampling. Now, here are some guidelines for choosing a probability sampling method. Now, there are other guidelines, but they are discussed in higher statistics subjects. So, to select a probability sampling method for our analysis, we shall consider the following. Whether the data is homogeneous, which means similar or more or less the same, just like these M&Ms, or if our data are heterogeneous, meaning they are varied or they are different, just like this set of colored M&Ms. So, if our data is homogeneous with respect to the variables of interest, then that would mean we shall select either SRS, simple random sampling, systematic sampling, or cluster sampling. However, if our population units are heterogeneous with respect to the variables of interest, then we can do either stratified or cluster. Let's have some specific examples. Say, for example, our population are all regular employees in a company, and our variable is work performance. Now, it depends on the context of your study that if our regular employees have the same work performance, then therefore this is homogeneous. Therefore, we can use SRS, systematic, or cluster. Now, this depends, of course, on the initial assumptions that we have on our regular employees. More or less, regular employees would have a standard of work performance depending on that industry, and probably we can say that it would be homogeneous and we can select this one. We are not saying that all companies all regular employees in those companies would have homogeneous or more or less the same work performance. Difference, uh, this difference can be seen per industry, per company. But more or less, if a company has a standard of the performance of other regular employees, they will be regular if they follow that standard. So maybe we can say that work performance is homogeneous, depending again on our study. Here, we have all regular employees in our company, but this time it's monthly expenditure. And this time, some might say that this is now heterogeneous. Why is that? Because more or less monthly expenditure would vary if you are the owner or the CEO or you're a high executive compared to our average regular employee. They have different salaries, so they might spend monthly differently. So since we can more or less say that our variable rather is heterogeneous, our population rather with respect to our variable is heterogeneous, then we can say we can either have it stratified or cluster. Now, please do take note that the classification whether the data is homogeneous and heterogeneous is based on it can be related literatures, previous analysis or previous analysis, or secondary data that you might be able to access depending on the company or depending on the population that you have. Let us have more guidelines in probability sampling in the next video.